to the space, and I'll introduce the first speaker. We're behind on time a little bit, so forgive me if I'm talking fast and I rush through a couple of these intros. The first speaker that I'm going to introduce is Mabel Gonzalez Marin. She is the coordinator of the International Democratic Federation of Women in Latin America and the Caribbean and part of the Cuban delegation.
Y buenas tardes. Con el mismo los dos.
Por lo mismo, sí, sí, sí.
Perfecto.
No, está bien, está bien.
Ya. En Cuba, las políticas y programas dirigidos a la reducción del riesgo y desastre, a la resiliencia al clima y su mitigación, tienen una visión integradora que logra verse desde las dimensiones de lo económico, lo político, lo social y también lo ambiental.
In Cuba, they have political and reduction programs to increase the resiliency of the climate and the mitigation in the vision of integrating dimensions of the social, political, and economic and environmental in order to guarantee levels of levels of great habitation for families and considered to the rights of citizens and without discrimination and
Todo esto dirigido a garantizar un nivel de vida adecuado a las familias, lo que es considerado como un derecho que todas las personas tienen acceso al mismo sin ningún tipo de discriminación, incluyendo la discriminación de género.
So this is all in order to guarantee levels of a good life for many families and the rights of citizens without discrimination of gender.
Desde el año 2017, el Estado cubano cuenta con un plan para el enfrentamiento al cambio climático, conocido como Tarea Vida, que tiene como objetivo fundamental proteger la vida humana y su calidad en condiciones de un clima cambiante.
Since 2017, the Cuban state has created a plan to confront the climate crisis. It's known as Tarea Vida. I think it's work, homework. I forgot how you can translate that, but so its objective is to have the fundamentals of protecting human life and the quality of human life and of the climate.
Este programa está integrado por 5 acciones estratégicas y 11 tareas y constituye además una propuesta integral en la que se presenta una identificación de zonas vulnerables, de lugares que están priorizados, sus afectaciones y las acciones a cometer.
So this objective has 5 strategic actions and 11 objectives, which constitutes the proposal of integral for the presentation of identifying the zones and prioritizing these effects.
No es un programa rígido, es un programa que se puede ir enriqueciendo y actualizando a través de la propia implementación en cada uno de los lugares y que por supuesto también está transversalizado por el objetivo número 5 de los Objetivos de Desarrollo Sostenible, que es el tema de la igualdad de género.
So this action, it's very enriching in the development of the project, and its development is in relations to 5 regions with the objective of gender equality.
Entre sus principales acciones se encuentra implementar y controlar las medidas de adaptación y mitigación al cambio climático, articuladas y derivadas de políticas y programas en los planes y proyectos vinculados con la seguridad alimentaria, la energía renovable, la eficiencia energética, el ordenamiento territorial y urbano, el manejo sostenible del agua, la pesca, el turismo, la actividad agropecuaria, la salud también, la construcción, el transporte, la industria y el manejo adecuado, sostenible de los bosques, priorizando siempre las medidas dirigidas a elevar la percepción del riesgo y aumentar el nivel de conocimiento de nuestra población y el grado de participación de ella, es decir, de la población, en el enfrentamiento a este cambio climático.
So, its principles action, finds, to implement the controls of, that adaptation of these, mediums, to mitigate the climate crisis, in these political sectors of these programs, and using these as a vehicles of, projects to, secure, the, food sovereignty, and energy renewable, effective energies, and, to ensure the order within the territory. Okay, yeah, order within the urban and territorial. And also in order to sustain the waters, and, to have, the, health for tourism, for construction, for transportation, for industries, and, in order to, protect the forest, and prioritize these, mediums and actions in order to elevate the, perceptions and augmentation levels, known and in part, in order to, have this, these great levels for the populations in front of the climate crisis.
Por otra parte, el Plan Nacional de Desarrollo Económico y Social hasta el 2030, aprobado en Cuba, en su eje territorial, alinea sus proyecciones con la Agenda de Desarrollo hasta el 2030 y los Objetivos de Desarrollo Sostenible, con énfasis en un grupo de ciudades y comunidades sostenibles con una visión local importante, respaldado por planes de ordenamiento territorial y urbanístico, así como de reducción de desastres, los cuales tienen en cuenta características y necesidades de cada lugar.
So, this, Economic Development National Plan and also Social Plan, which is approved of, and with the objectives, to be done by, 2030, is a line of the country and the agenda for development of, 2030, with the emphasis in 11 cities and community and sustainable communities, with a vision, local vision of important support for plans of orderly, in the territory and urbanization, in order to reduce the disasters and also, the characteristics necessary, in every place, and, the risks and affections, that it can produce, as consequence in a climate phenomenon or or a natural disaster.
Esta política en Cuba es conducida por los gobiernos locales, con la participación de diferentes organismos e instituciones que son los que a su vez se encargan de incorporar, igual que las organizaciones políticas y de masa, organización civil, sociedad civil, como la Federación de Mujeres Cubanas y la población en general. Todas estas participantes pues intervienen en todas las etapas de este proceso. Resaltar que la educación ambiental está incorporada como parte de los programas de estudios en los diferentes niveles de enseñanza para contribuir desde edades tempranas a la educación ambiental.
So this politics is spearheaded by local governments in coordinations with the fiscal planification system and the participation of institutions and academic organizations of civil society, including the Federation of Cuban Women and the population, the general population in all these forms in the process in order to support environmental education, which is incorporated in these programs in the different levels of this popular education in order to contribute to the education of to environmental education.
La mayoría de la población en Cuba reside en ciudades, es decir, que el mayor por ciento Cuba, la mayoría es urbana, y hay un grupo de programas dirigidos también a proteger a la mujer, a beneficiar a las mujeres y a las familias que viven en comunidades rurales, con el objetivo que de alguna manera también puedan lograr la independencia económica y a su vez mitigar estos efectos que produce el cambio climático. Al mismo tiempo, Cuba ha dado pasos importantes para lograr la igualdad de género en el centro de estas políticas y estas estrategias, desde la mirada de esa protección al medio ambiente, ya que somos mayoría, somos muchas las mujeres que dirigimos los centros de gestión de riesgo. Las cubanas tienen una alta participación en la fuerza especializada y en los puestos de dirección vinculados al cuidado y preservación del entorno.
So most of our program is focused in the rural areas of Cuba. That's a majority, where basically the focus is on women and family, making them more the center protagonists in this project, in this education for climate justice. And in order to yeah, basically that's what those are the points right there, in order to educate the population, focusing on women and the families in rural areas of Cuba.
En el sector agroalimentario participamos en espacios de empoderamiento vinculados a prácticas agrícolas. En los años entre 2020 y 2022, Cuba impulsó varios programas de desarrollo con el PNUD que fortalecieron o permitieron y potenciaron el empoderamiento económico, el liderazgo y la autonomía para la toma de decisiones de mujeres del sector agropecuario, contribuyendo a la economía de género en las economías sostenibles e igualitarias en esta materia. Más de 56,000 mujeres se capacitaron y más de 59,000 mejoraron sus condiciones de vida y laborales y fortalecieron sus capacidades productivas y de gestión.
So these agricultural sectors participated in these spaces of empowerment and agricultural practices and resilience in these impacts against the climate crisis. In the period of 2022, Cuba supported various programs in the development with the support of the PNUD that fortified the potential and economic empowerment of the leadership and autonomy in order for decisions to be made by women of the country in order to contribute for gender equality in economic sustainability. And yes, as of 56,000 women participated, and as well as 56,000 women with the capacity, and 59,000 with conditions of their life and labors, fortify this capacity of productivity in managing the benefits of this initiative. And yeah.
Ujú. En el 2023, con el apoyo del Sistema de las Naciones Unidas en el país, los programas de desarrollo nacionales beneficiaron a 500,000 mujeres procedentes de 33 municipios del país con conocimientos, con equipamientos y herramientas para la implementación de prácticas que estuvieran en paralelo con la adaptación y mitigación al cambio climático.
So since 2013, with the support of the United Nations, sorry. All right, yes, so as I said, in 2013, with the support of the United Nations to the country and the program of development, it benefited over 500,000 women, which were from 33 municipalities of the country, with the understanding of these equipments and tools and the implementation of these practices in order to adapt and mitigate against the climate crisis. Estaba aquí, ¿verdad? Énfasis.
Ujú. Ahí mismo está. Como cifras, pudiésemos estar hablando de mucho, pero yo creo que es preciso reconocer que todo esto ocurre bajo la protección que otorga nuestro país el Programa Nacional para el Adelanto de las Mujeres, que constituye la agenda del Estado cubano para lograr mayor integralidad y efectividad en la prevención y eliminación de manifestaciones de discriminación contra las mujeres, y ahí también se incluye el tema de la protección del medio ambiente.
So we could talk about a lot of statistics, but this, under the protection program, the National Protection Program, for the, uplifting of women, constituted the agenda of the Cuban state, to, with its, objectives to accomplish, major integrity and effectiveness in preventing and eliminating the discrimination against women, which was approved in of March of 2021.
A pesar de los efectos sin precedentes del bloqueo económico, comercial y financiero que impuesto por el gobierno de los Estados Unidos a nuestro pueblo, de la inclusión de Cuba en la espuria lista de países que patrocinan el terrorismo, Cuba avanza en la implementación de su estrategia de desarrollo, incluida la ejecución de su plan para enfrentar el cambio climático, Tarea Vida, y seguirá avanzando en la implementación de iniciativas para disminuir los efectos del cambio climático en la vida de las mujeres y de las familias cubanas en general.
So in order to pass these effects, of the unprecedented economic, and commercial financial blockade imposed by the government of the United States, and inclusion of Cuba in, the countries of the state sponsor of terrorism, Cuba advances in implementing, its strategy of development and also its objectives, its plan, in order to confront the climate crisis, with the program Tarea Vida, in order to advance the implementation and initiatives.
Yeah.
In order to advance the implementations and initiatives of the effects of the climate crisis in the life of women and Cuban families in general.
Ahora seguidamente Alexis, director de la Unión de Juristas de Cuba, pues también hará una valoración de cómo desde la perspectiva de las leyes también existe una protección para el medio ambiente en Cuba. Cedo la palabra a mi colega.
Oh, ¿cómo se llama el señor?
Alexis.
Okay, so here comes my colleague Alexis
Inarte,
Hinatis, which is going to talk about laws, las leyes de qué?
presidente de la Unión Nacional de Juristas de Cuba.
He is the president, the labor president of Cuba.
Antes de comenzar a hablar, vamos a darle un aplauso a mi compañera.
And before I speak, can we give an applause to my comrade?
Buenas tardes a todas y todos.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Nos complace que nos hayan invitado a este gran evento
I'm very grateful to be invited to this great event
y que podamos al mismo tiempo compartir un tema de trascendental importancia para el proceso económico y social de Cuba.
and that we could, in order to share and dialogue about this transitional conversation of the social and economic aspects of Cuba.
El tema del medio ambiente ha estado en el centro de atención siempre de la construcción de nuestro modelo social socialista.
So the question of climate has always been something centered in our development for socialism.
A solo 100 días del triunfo de la revolución, se dictó la primera ley de repoblación forestal por la dirección revolucionaria para repoblar la Sierra Maestra, la Sierra de Isla de Pino, la Sierra de Cubitas.
So after the triumph of the revolution, the first 100 days, there were laws implemented for the forestization of areas such as the Sierra Maestra.
En el año 1981 se dicta la primera ley de medio ambiente en Cuba, la ley número 33, que a su vez fue la primera ley del medio ambiente de América Latina,
¿Cuál año fue eso?
1981.
So in 1981, the first lay of the first lay that has to do with the environment, the law 33 was the first was the first law passed that has to do with the preservation of the climate in Latin America.
Años más tarde, con la proclamación de la Constitución de 1976 y la reforma constitucional del año 1992, se aprueban nuevas leyes y decretos leyes. Esta vez se aprueba la Ley 81 de 1997, una ley programática que vino a sentar las bases de todo el desarrollo medioambiental en Cuba para los próximos años.
So with the construction of the Constitution in 1976 and the reforms of 1992, these new laws that were approved and that were created, such as Ley 81 of 1997, demonstrated the laws that supported the development of these politics and this management of the environment.
Es así que el proceso revolucionario y de atención al sistema de la ley del medio ambiente en Cuba tuvo siempre la guía de nuestro comandante en jefe, y hay una frase que siempre queremos recordar cuando Fidel dijo en la cumbre de Río de Janeiro: una importante especie biológica está en riesgo de desaparecer por la rápida y progresiva liquidación de sus condiciones naturales, el hombre.
So since these laws have been passed, we remember the words of our commander, Fidel Castro, that when the commander said, every species, every biological species that is at risk of disappearing very quickly and progressively due to the liquidation, due to the climate crisis, it affects our conditions naturally of man.
Desde aquel entonces también alertó Fidel la responsabilidad que tenían las sociedades de consumo con el deterioro del medio ambiente y su extinción.
Fidel always alerted societies of the consummation and the responsibility of made people conscious of the responsibilities of consumption and also the destruction of the climate.
A este conjunto normativo de leyes, de decretos leyes que se aprobaron, le continuaron estrategias nacionales programáticas desde los años 1997, 2007, 2010, 2010, 2014, 2014, 2018, 2021, 2025 y unido a ello estrategias de los organismos de la Administración Central del Estado de nuestras provincias y municipios.
So yeah, so a lot of these conversations about the laws, about the environmental laws have been in conversations since 1997 to 2010 to 2015 to the present day. Having conversations and dialogues about the climate, our climate, ¿cómo se llama la organización?
Organización de la Administración Central del Estado, organismo de la Administración Central del Estado.
So this is the organization central of the state.
De esta manera, como resultado de esta estrategia, se trabajó en identificar los principales problemas y retos que tuviéramos que enfrentar en la solución del contexto del desarrollo sostenible del país. Así se identificaron dentro de los problemas la degradación de los suelos, las afectaciones a la cobertura forestal, la contaminación.
Okay. Entonces, estamos aquí, ¿verdad? Sí. So as a result of this strategy, in order to defend the climate, we have worked to identify the principal problems with the climate and to establish the strategical directions and solutions in the context of development and sustainability for the country. We identify these program problems as the effects ahí va.
También la pérdida de la diversidad ideológica y el deterioro de los bienes y servicios, la carencia y dificultades en el manejo, la disponibilidad y el uso del agua y los efectos negativos del cambio climático.
So these things are as far as the effects of the water, the effects of climate change.
Como direcciones estratégicas se identificaron garantizar el crecimiento económico, social y el uso racional de los recursos naturales, así como la disminución de los impactos ambientales y la degradación del medio ambiente.
So a lot of these strategies has to do with the economic development in the areas of our natural resources and less impacts on the degradation of our environment.
También se propuso asegurar la conservación, restauración y el uso sostenible de los ecosistemas terrestres y marinos para evitar los efectos adversos, aumentar su resiliencia y recuperar su salud y productividad.
So a lot of this we focus on what affects the ecosystem and also the marina effects and also see solutions of how we could navigate through these sectors solutions for climate.
Y por último, reducir o eliminar los impactos negativos al medio ambiente y a la salud de las personas mediante el desarrollo y reconvención de la infraestructura, logrando la gestión sostenible y el uso eficiente de los recursos naturales.
And last, in order to reduce elements and the negative elements that impact our climate and also the health of people in the development and the infrastructure in that management and sustainability with our natural resources.
Para cómo lograr su efectividad en el contexto actual, solo era posible con la implementación de la tarea vida y el control de su cumplimiento, ya antes mencionada por mi compañera, con un desarrollo de un sistema integrado de vigilancia ambiental, con la elevación del papel rector y sistémico de la inspección estatal ambiental y al mismo tiempo con la elevación de la participación y presencia ciudadana.
Okay, so how are we going to navigate through these problems that we have with our climate? One is to implement the program of Tarea Vida and to control one is that program that we have in order to navigate through the climate crisis. Another is the development and integration of a vigilance of our climate. Another is understanding the role and system of the state of our climate, and the fifth is the elevation and perception and participation of the citizens.
Es importante señalar que el Plan de Estado para el Enfrentamiento al Cambio Climático en la República de Cuba, conocido como la Tarea Vida, es el resultado de las investigaciones científicas determinadas en las afectaciones al medio ambiente que tenían trascendencia en el cumplimiento de los objetivos de desarrollo económico y social. Por eso se centró en esta tarea vida la estrategia a seguir en la construcción del modelo social socialista en Cuba.
Okay, that's why this plan, which is that's being spearheaded by the Republic of Cuba, known as Tarea Vida, is adopted by the government since April of 2017, and its response in understanding and understanding the development about the impacts of climate change and transcending those objectives and economic developments and social developments for the country.
Como principal política del país, que incluye defender y enfrentar el cambio climático, está concretada a través de un plan de acción a corto, mediano y largo plazo, concluido en corto plazo en 2020, mediano plazo en el 2030, largo plazo en el 2050 y muy largo en el 2100.
Okay, so the principle of principal politics of the country, and when it comes to the climate, is to concretely navigate plans of action integral and including mediums of adaptation and mitigation, which we're trying to cut by 2020, be in the middle of 2030 in larger like larger goals for 2050 and way more larger goals for 2100. Yeah.
Para dar cumplimiento a estos propósitos, en el año 2019 se proclama una nueva Constitución de la República de Cuba, que tiene como fin revisar todo el conjunto de normas que fundamentaban la construcción del modelo social socialista, y como resultado de este proceso, Constitución que fue sometida a referendo y a consulta popular y que más del 78,3% de los electores votaron afirmativamente, se reformula los conceptos del derecho al medio ambiente y se establece como un derecho principal dentro del intenso catálogo de derechos que el país promueve.
Okay, so since April 10th of 2019, with the referendum and change to the Constitution of Cuba, it was put into place by 78% of the masses to center the climate, the question of the climate crisis in the socialist development or socialist model of socialist Cuba.
La Constitución de la República de Cuba, en su artículo número 1, enarboló que Cuba es un Estado de Derecho y Justicia Social, democrático, independiente y soberano, enarbolado con todos y para el bien de todos.
So in Cuba's, so in Article 1 of this Constitution, it states that socialist Cuba is a state of rights, social justice, democratic, independent, and sovereign, and organized by the masses and for the masses.
Así, dentro del conjunto de derechos dispuestos y por la importancia que reviste el tema medioambiental, se determinó que todas las personas tienen derecho a disfrutar de un medio ambiente sano y equilibrado.
So with this new constitution, we put in forth that the climate is something that we have to take care of, and it's something that all of us need to enjoy and take care of.
También se dispuso que el Estado protege el medio ambiente y los recursos naturales del país y reconoce su estrecha vinculación con el desarrollo sostenible de la economía y la sociedad para hacer más racional la vida humana.
So this proposal puts forth the importance of maintaining the climate and the natural resources in recognizing these rights of the sustainable development of the economy and society in order to make a more better human living.
En virtud de esta gran modificación y este concepto nuevo de derecho reconocido en la Constitución, se dicta la Ley número 150, Ley de los Recursos Naturales y del Medio Ambiente, que promueve una modificación revolucionaria en todo el contenido de la norma.
So this law 150 is a law which is to protect the natural resources and put forth the importance of the climate for all of Cuba and also promoting Cuba's revolutionary socialist ideology.
La nueva ley estableció un conjunto de principios de obligatorio cumplimiento en la protección del medio ambiente y del uso sostenible de los recursos naturales en todos los programas. Se dispuso además proteger al medio ambiente y el cumplimiento de las personas naturales y jurídicas en todas las acciones, proyectos, modificaciones, empresas, emprendimientos que se realizaran, en especial en la protección relativa a la salud y a la higiene ambiental, los recursos naturales y el patrimonio natural del país.
So this new lay, this new law, ¿puedes oír arriba? Estaba, okay. So this new law put forth the protection of the climate for Cuba and its natural resources and the norms and regulations established to protect the climate and especially in relation to the climate's hygiene, the health and maintaining of natural resources as natural patrimonies of the country.
Un detalle muy importante que prevé la nueva ley es la presencia de la participación ciudadana en todas las políticas de cambio, en todas las políticas de evaluación de cualquier transformación medioambiental en la economía, pudiendo la población extinguir, modificar y proponer cualquier tipo de cambio a las obras, a las infraestructuras que se pretendan hacer cuando van en detrimento del desarrollo económico y social del territorio.
Okay, so this new law, it pushes for more popular participation of the citizenry in order to take care of the climate and in order to ensure the sustainability of the natural resources and that every community has a decision of how these laws are implemented in the care of our natural resources and the climate.
Otro aspecto trascendental
Let me know.
es que se prevé el acceso a la justicia ambiental que antes no estaba vetado, amparado en el acceso pleno a la justicia y en las normas del debido proceso regulado en la Constitución, en el artículo 92 al 96 del texto constitucional.
So a lot of these aspects for climate justice is our initiatives that are now part of our constitution and our law in order to prevent more damage to our Mother Earth.
Es decir, que ante cualquier afectación, daño o reclamación, se puede ir a la vía judicial a reclamar. Y a esta norma, para concluir, le han seguido un conjunto de normas que aseguran justamente su desarrollo y ejecución. Se instituyeron en el Código Penal un conjunto de delitos denominados delitos contra el medio ambiente relacionados con la contaminación de las aguas, la contaminación de la atmósfera, la contaminación de los ríos en función de una mayor protección al medio ambiente.
So there have been strict laws in order to protect the waters, in order for codes to be enforced to prevent contaminations in our rivers and in our seas, as far as to protect our environment, our climate.
En función de ellos, en Cuba, en la reforma judicial y procesal que ha tenido en los últimos años, se ha querido cumplir un principio martiano, enarbolado también en nuestra Constitución, cuando dijo: yo quiero que la ley primera de nuestra República sea el culto a la dignidad plena del hombre. Y basado en esa dignidad es que se ha promovido estas leyes y otro conjunto de normas que asegurarán un medio ambiente sano y equilibrado en la República de Cuba.
So in Cuba, we have pushed more laws, more Martinian laws that push forth the justice for the climate and for and the health and balance.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much.
At this time, oops. Thank you so much to the speakers thus far. We appreciate you both. Take a moment to stretch for about 30 seconds. I know this is a lot of information, so I want everyone to take a moment to stretch before I introduce my next speaker. At this time, I would like to introduce my dear comrade, Allison Bodine, who is a climate justice activist, central organizer with Climate Convergence Metro Vancouver, and a member of the editorial board of the Fire Next Time newspaper. Welcome, Allison.
All right, thank you very much, T. Can we get a Viva Cuba? Viva Cuba! Viva Cuba! Yeah, so we just heard, I think, some very important information. Our Cuban comrades are great at transferring to us all the details of their revolutionary socialist programs, including for the environment, for climate change adaptation and mitigation. We have a lot to learn, but thank you so much to Jose and to Maybel for trying to explain to us a bit about what Cuba is doing. Today, I wanted to talk of the perspective of someone organizing in North America against climate change, for climate justice, what we can learn from Cuba and why Cuba has been able to accomplish what it has. After me, then we'll have Dr. Helen Yaffe, who's up tonight. She can hear us. She's up tonight up in Scotland and is going to be joining us. We'll have some videos direct from Cuba, and then hopefully we'll have a little time for discussion, but if not, we'll keep our discussion up throughout the conference. 2024 was the hottest year on record, the first year that reached more than 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. The number that internationally scientists have agreed was the limit to, quote, prevent worsening and potentially irreversible effects of climate change. Our world today is characterized by a drastic and devastating climate that is changing. The warming of our planet has brought with it wildly changing weather patterns and climate chaos. The poisoning and pollution of Mother Earth persists. There's species extinction, air pollution, deforestation, ocean acidification, soil degradation, microplastics and poisons are everywhere. I know that we don't need to inform ourselves about those impacts in this community or in this room. But humans are an integral part of nature and therefore are also under attack through never-ending US wars, occupations, genocides, blockades, through living the vast majority of this world in a capitalist system that's based on the continuous exploitation of humans and the planet. Cuba, an island of just over 11 million people in the Caribbean Sea, only 90 miles from the shores of the United States, has punched well above its weight when it comes to showing the way forward for fighting for climate justice and in defense of Mother Earth. Despite a criminal US blockade, which has an impact on every part of the Cuban economy, including Cuba's ability to invest in the fight against climate change, Cuba has become a leader in the worldwide struggle against climate change. Cuba continues to show us that building a more sustainable and just world is possible, but that it requires fundamental change. The Cuban Revolution has done what so many of us have chanted in the streets at climate strikes, climate actions, actions against mining or environmental exploitation. Because Cuba has reversed humanity's destructive relationship with Mother Earth by overthrowing capitalism, by carrying out what we chant, which is system change, not climate change. It is with Cuba's socialist revolution that Cuba has become a leader in the worldwide struggle against climate change. It is Cuba's socialist revolution that meant in 2006, the World Wildlife Fund declared that Cuba was the only country in the world with sustainable development. And the Sustainable Development Index has constantly and consistently ranked Cuba in the top 10 countries in the world, often first, second, or third, for sustainable development. In contrast, the United States is number 156 and Canada is number 157 on this index. Since the 1959 Cuban Revolution, the relationship between Cuba's economy, society, and the Cuban environment or habitat has been fundamentally restructured. And this has had an impact on the relationship between especially environment and the economy. This is what has changed. It has enabled Cuba to take action in ways that are fundamentally different than capitalism has shown the world, than environmental NGOs with millions of dollars have shown the world, than the US government that for 4 years can have some policies and then those are gone in a second, as we've been observing, has shown the world. And why has Cuba been able to do this? One of these reasons is sustainable agriculture. Many of us have had the beautiful opportunity to visit community farms and hydroponicos in Cuba. We've been able to exchange with Cuban farmers across the island. But Cuba's ability to broadly implement sustainable agriculture on the small scale and on the large scale is based on land reform that began with the triumph of the 1959 Cuban Revolution. It is the way that the ownership of land works in Cuba that makes it very different from the projects that some of us are maybe involved in trying to grow here in the United States. The land was taken out of the hands of multinational corporations and large landowners, which enabled the development of state farms and cooperatives, which weren't perfect and which didn't have the environment as their primary goal initially, but which laid the groundwork for Cuba's sustainable agriculture movement, which grew significantly after the fall of the Soviet Union in 1991. We heard a lot from our brother Jose about Cuba's legislation. And I think that is also important. Legislative action is accountable to the Cuban people in Cuba. Article 27 of the 1976 Cuban Constitution states, quote, "The duty of the state and society to care about the environment." 1976. The updated constitution that Jose was referring to also includes and enshrines the right to, quote, "enjoy a healthy and a balanced environment." And those aren't just empty words in Cuba. That's not just legislation passed for the sake of passing legislation. In Cuba, the legislation leads to action. And both constitutions were approved by the Cuban people in a popular vote, which means people in Cuba were educated and empowered through the process of the Constitution. They learned about why it was important to have the word environment enshrined in their Constitution, to better understand the connections between humans and nature. And having empowered people is a key to fighting against climate change and fighting for climate justice. The Cuban state also provides the coordination necessary to implement a common plan for combating climate change, enabled by a planned economy. It is, of course, in stark contrast to the disasters we saw in North Carolina, where hundreds of people lost their lives in a climate disaster. Man-made, I'll say, climate disaster. Beyond the economy, civil society, state institutions, all levels of government are able to coordinate public education campaigns through free and accessible mediums, school curriculums to television programs to billboards. Cuba can make the climate crisis an issue discussed at the dinner table. In Vancouver, Canada, a place that people may associate as being environmentally friendly or green, there's a big struggle to even get climate change curriculum implemented in schools. In Cuba, the government, the people think it's important and it gets implemented. Can you imagine if billboards in New York City or in Canada were dedicated to educating society about the climate crisis instead of selling fast food or disposable commodities? If mass media, the nightly news, television programming, which I know a lot of us have a lot of criticisms for, but what if they were campaigning about the worldwide impact of more frequent extreme weather events and their cause, and pointing the finger at the world's biggest corporations and the biggest military machine, the United States government? As marine scientist David Guggenheim, president of Ocean Doctor, a nonprofit in Washington, D.C. that has projects in Cuba, stated in the film Toda Vida by Dr. Helen Yaffe, quote, "It's impressive. Cuba is an unusual country in that they actually respect their scientists and their climate change policy is science-driven. And that is possible because of the Cuban Revolution." I also want to say that defeating the US blockade against Cuba is a climate justice issue. Cuba has become a leader in defending Mother Earth despite the terrible impacts of the brutal US blockade that prevents Cuba from accessing resources and technology needed to combat climate change effectively, to carry out climate change adaptation or mitigation. But there's also an information blockade that limits the possibilities of exchange and collaboration between Cuban and US scientists. And this is especially criminal given that the US and Cuba share a vital ocean ecosystem and need to be able to coordinate and plan together. The US blockade has also prevented people in the United States from learning about Cuba's achievements, from learning about sustainable agriculture, methods for preserving life and the environment during disaster preparedness. This information is not able to be openly exchanged due to the blockade. The impact of the cruel US blockade also magnifies the impact of extreme weather events and rising sea levels in Cuba, regardless of the preparations and plans of the government. Ending the US blockade on Cuba is a climate justice issue because Cuba will only be able to comprehensively tackle the climate emergency, which they're attempting to do today, if it's able to do so without being tied up by the chains of the criminal blockade. The power of Cuba's socialist revolution and commitment to defending Mother Earth and humanity is also most clearly understood when we examine its alternative. Capitalism, the United States, Canada, the economic system of imperialist countries. Capitalism is a system that puts profit and the exploitation of resources above human needs. It is capitalism that is warming, melting, and killing the planet and humanity. In 2017, just 100 corporations produced 71% of global emissions, yet governments around the world let the pollution continue. Let it continue actually and subsidize it most of the time. Why? Because the capitalist system demands that they do so, because it's a system that lives only through the exploitation of humans and the Mother Earth for profit. Each time a new report is released, such as the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the predictions are more grim and the united voice of scientists is more clear. Yet the governments of the wealthiest countries in the world continue business as usual climate destruction. Cuba cannot reverse climate change alone. It has actually, as I said, punched well above its weight in attempting to do so and contributes very little to the pollution and to the carbon emissions that we see growing in the world every day. The response that we need is an international climate justice movement, a mass movement of people mobilizing in the streets in defense of Mother Earth, because no single country, no one group, no matter how big, will be able to solve the climate crisis by itself. By its nature, the political struggle for a sustainable world requires international cooperation and an international class struggle. We need solidarity and, more importantly, unity across borders to become a powerful and effective force against the destruction of Mother Earth. As people that believe that a just and sustainable world is possible, we must fight in defense of Mother Earth at every level, from local struggles against climate-destroying pipelines or fracking, to mobilizing in defense of Indigenous rights and demanding an end to US-led wars, demanding an end to the genocide in Palestine. We must build a more united and stronger climate justice movement with the vision and strategy to direct this movement towards anti-capitalism and anti-imperialism, and Cuba can be our example that we go to people with. Fighting against the madness of capitalist production is interrelated with all of the other ills of capitalism. And that's why Cuba and the incredible achievements of the Cuban Revolution are such a fundamental part of our conversation. We can change humanity's destructive relationship with Mother Earth. Cuba is showing us the way. I'll end with the words of Fidel Castro when he spoke at the Rio Summit in 1992, because like many of his speeches, his words today are even more true now than they were then. He said, quote, "Unequal trade, protectionism, and the foreign debt assault the ecological balance and promote the destruction of the environment. If we want to save humanity from this self-destruction, wealth and available technologies must be distributed better throughout the planet. Less luxury and less waste in a few countries would mean less poverty and hunger in much of the world. Stop transferring the third world lifestyles and consumer habits that ruin the environment. Make human life more rational. Adopt a just international economic order. Use science to achieve sustainable development without pollution. Pay the ecological debt. Eradicate hunger, not humanity. Cuba's message is clear. A just and sustainable world is possible and necessary, and unity and building united fronts for Mother Earth are the key to our victory in the struggle for human and Mother Earth's liberation. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Allison. That was wonderful and so informative. The next speaker that I would like to present to you all is Dr. Helen Yaffe. Dr. Helen Yaffe is a senior lecturer at the University of Glasgow. She's the author of We Are Cuba and a producer of Terra Vida. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Helen Yaffe.
Hello, can you hear me? Yeah, good, because I was muted. Thank you very much for all of the organisers. Some of you I know, some I'm just meeting now. Thanks for the invite to participate. Thanks to all the brilliant speeches. I was listening in on the plenary earlier. Unfortunately, I can't be with you. Can't get into the United States at the moment. So we'll have to postpone that in-person meeting. I'm going to share a slide with you. So if someone can just unmute long enough to tell me that you can see it, that would be great. Can you see the slide? Mark, can you give us a thumbs up? Yep, great. And if I make it big screen? Okay, I started at the end, so. Okay, so I only have 10 minutes, but fortunately, the speakers before me in this workshop have covered a lot of the ground I was going to speak about, very informative and impassioned speeches. So I was going to talk about Terra Vida. I will just skim over a few of those things, but first I want to start with a bit of, as some of you will know, I'm an economic and social historian, so I always like to go back over the history. I want to talk about why Cuba has the capacity to respond in the way that we've been hearing. And we had someone talking about the environmental laws. This is very important as a principle that the post-1959 socialist system gives a social character on as Hewick has said, the social character of property facilitates the environmental protection and rational use of natural resources. Hewick is a historian of Cuban environmental legislation, and he says Cuban law promotes public and collective values. Environmental laws fit easily into this framework. So the legal infrastructure is very important. From the political economy or economic perspective, Cuba has a state-dominated, centrally planned economy. That means that the government, the state, mobilize resources and direct the national strategy without having to negotiate with private profit-seeking interests. So Alison was talking about the corporations, and usually governments have to use financial mechanisms or regulation that can easily be avoided to get them to act in a certain way for the environment. I mean, the environment is it's called an externality to their economic thinking and planning, which is basically the pursuit of profit. Cuba has an incredible civil defense system. It's world leading for responding to natural hazards. Yeah.
Helen? You're showing us your full display of your slides. So if you could just, under display settings, I think show at the top, there's a drop-down menu at the top.
Yeah.
Under display settings.
So what do you want me to show?
You have to show There, that's perfect. Yes, you got it.
Is
Thank
that
you.
okay? I have
That's
no
perfect.
idea
Thanks,
what
Helen.
happened then, but I just follow follow your lead. Okay, so they also have a capacity to collect and analyze local data. What this means is that the IPCC has a prediction for example, sea level rises, and the Cubans can take that, but they can then adapt it to 167 different locations on the island. They can make very territorially specific calculations of how much these impacts will affect the local communities in order to help them. So based on very strong science and very strong institutions, there has been a historic contribution of geographers and environmentalists who have pushed this agenda as part of the socialist development process. I'll mention Antonio Núñez Jiménez and also Fidel Castro, who has been really spearleading some of these important developments in Cuba. The more generally beyond that, the environmental agenda has had institutional part from the Cuban Communist Party, which has openly endorsed an environmental ecological agenda. But of course, particularly as the Cuban speakers were saying earlier, absolutely key to Cuba's capacity in this field is the role of the mass organizations. Some of them were mentioned: the Women's Federation, the small Peasants Farmers Association, the street committees, and so on. Their ability, their willingness to participate, to mobilize, and to have communication which links, it goes right down from the grassroots to the street level, all the way up to central government, and that protects people, it saves lives, and is essential for understanding climate justice in Cuba. So the previous speakers talked a fair bit about Tarea Vida, Cuba's life task, its state plan to confront climate change, which was approved in 2017. It was actually the result of studies on climate change from the 1990s. So Cuba was taking this very seriously. It was dedicating some of those scientists and scientific energies to evaluating and previous programs that they had. And as one of the speakers was saying, it has different time frames that go from short, which is already finished, to medium, long, and very long term, which takes us to the end of the century. It is very unique framework for decentralized sustainable development focused on climate change adaptation, because as Alison said, Cuba's contribution to global carbon emissions is tiny, it's less than 1%. So really the focus of their energies has to be on adapting to this global threat, which they have contributed almost nothing to, as is the case for most of the global south. So the key features of Tarea Vida are that the state assumes responsibility. So these are things, like more general principles or lessons that we can take from Cuba's response. Secondly, that the policy is led by the science. They focus on natural solutions, EBAs, ecosystem-based adaptation. That's what they favor. This means drawing on national resources, and it avoids dependence on external finance, external technology, and external management skills or tools or mechanisms. That is, of course, essential for Cuba because of the United States blockade, which, as we know, is not just about trade or finance, it even affects technology and all sorts of integration with global institutions. So Cuba's program is also integrated with a broader process of a transition to a more decentralized, sustainable development. So this includes decentralizing budgets and decision-making to those local communities so that they can mobilize the local population to make decisions about investment projects and where the threats are in terms of the climate and so on. And as the first speaker said, flexibility is very much built into the plan. Orlando Rey, who is an advisor to the Minister of Science, Technology and the Environment, in the documentary which Alison mentioned, which is freely available on YouTube. It's called Cuba's Life Task Combating Climate Change. I encourage anyone who hasn't seen it to go and have a look. Orlando Rey says, that Terra Vida requires a vision that's not directed towards profit or self-interest. It must be premised on equity and rejecting inequality. A profound plan of this nature, he said, requires socialism. So in the first very short period, the short-term period of Terra Vida, we've already seen 11% of Cuba's most vulnerable households have been relocated. Now, this is not people turning up and saying to them, hey, you're in danger, move. This is a process through which the state is reconstructing their homes, but understands that you can't just build homes, you have to recreate communities, and they have to have your cultural centers, employment, they have to have doctors and so on. The Cuban state, despite this overlapping with the first Trump administration and the sanctions that came with it, is assuming the burden, the financial burden of, as the first speaker said, the first priority, preserving the lives of Cubans who face the existential threat of climate change. Here are some of the other achievements. I'm going to race through, though, to mention another program which I've been looking at called Mi Costa. It was launched in 2022 with United Nations Development Programme funding and Green Climate Fund, UNDP support and Green Climate Fund finance. Very small amount in global terms, less than $24 million US, and it's just incredible what Cuba can do with that small amount of funding. It was only Cuba's second success, and I've read the minutes of the meeting that approved that funding. It was opposed by the United States with no justification at all, just that we're taking a position to block this funding going through. And this is a project led by SITMA, again, that Ministry of Science, Technology and Environment, but with multiple state institutions collaborating in the programming, design, mobilization of resources and implementation. This one program is going to interact with 10% of the Cuban population. 1.3 million Cubans will be direct and indirect beneficiaries of this. So this is an example of how community participation is integral to the Cuban approach to adaptation. In the design phase, so before it's even come into place, you have geographic information systems combined with participatory mapping exercises during community workshops to determine which were the most vulnerable areas. The local people know this stuff. In the implementation phase, communities participate in those EBAs, the ecosystem-based adaptations, and capacity training. So they have a training of trainers program, so people get trained and they go into more rural or remote communities and they train others and so on and so forth. This institution capacity for grassroots mobilization in Cuba stems from their socialist political governance structures and the presence of these political, civil and scientific institutions throughout, at the local level throughout Cuba. So every municipality, every small, we call them boroughs here in the UK, has an office of the Ministry of Science, Technology and the Environment. It has an office of the Civil Defence System. They're active even in remote areas, and they work alongside these neighbourhood committees, women's committees, small farmers, and so on. And I'm not going to show you a snippet of that. That was the documentary. I just want to talk briefly about Cuba's access to climate finance, because we have to be realistic. Cuba's capacity is restrained by its lack of access to global financing for climate change adaptation. In 2022, the UN's Technical Assessment of Climate Finance report says Cuba requires finance to enable its transition to low emission intensive economy and to achieve climate change resilience. But the obstacles it recognizes are the United States blockade. It also has limited experience of applying for international climate finance because it's had to do most of these projects, fund them themselves. And there's certain difficulty in saying this is a project that is mitigation or adaptation, because for Cuba, the turn to sustainable development is so integral that it's very hard to find a project in Cuba where you can sort of separate it out into different parts. This is a quote that gives really specific examples of Cuba's problems. They cannot access international financing from bank credits and aid from international organizations. This includes new investments, supplies of spare parts, raw materials, state-of-the-art technologies, and so on and so forth. So lots of us have been involved in the Saving Lives campaign. We know about how that affects the healthcare system, but it also affects this area of climate change adaptation. So briefly, Cuba needs its own annual report for the National Determined Contributions Report for 2022 says that the financing required for climate change mitigation, this is not even the expensive part for Cuba, is 13.8 billion or 863 million annually. They want to get 61% of that for international finance and the rest domestically. But the average inflow for public international sources was just 16.9 million. Therefore, Cuba lacks up to 50 times the annual funding required to finance its mitigation needs expressed in its updated NDC assessment. This is linked to the current electrical crisis in Cuba because, of course, mitigation includes the switch to renewable energies. There are also plans to allocate 337 million annually in climate financing from domestic funds, but they've only been able to invest 155 million in 2019. And since then, the island's economic position has deteriorated massively with the sanctions introduced under Trump, but then maintained under Biden. So this excludes the costs of adaptation, which are for Cuba extremely high. In conclusion, Cuba is seriously disadvantaged.
Dr. Yafe,
Yeah,
you have 2 minutes left.
this is my final slide. I'm concluding. Cuba is disadvantaged as a small island developing country in an active tropical cyclone area subject to the US blockade, but it has these strengths and capacities resulting from its socialist development, the legal and institutional framework, state-dominated planned economy, civil defense system, and grassroots mobilization, political will, and so on. Tarea Vida is the culmination of years of environmental protection and promotion of sustainable development and scientific investigations. But turning the state plan into these active projects like Mi Costa requires financing in the billions. And this is, these are projects that possibly have transferable lessons for the rest of the Caribbean and the global South. But part of our role is clearly to stop the US blockade from preventing Cuba accessing this international climate finance. Okay, I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Yafe. We appreciate the information that you're providing us and look forward to learning more. At this time, I am going to take a moment to introduce my comrade, Aaron. Can you hear me? Aaron, who's part of the Cuba Sea movement and has led many of the efforts in coordinating this beautiful conference for us. She's going to talk a little bit about what the climate justice work, the grassroots, and introduce some films for us. Thank you, Aaron.
Hello. Hi. I'm going to be very quick because I know we're running late.
Santa María de Luzada es una ciudad costera, pueblo fundacional del Ecuador, rodeada de vegetación, como dice nuestra invitada.
Wait. You've started. Okay. I was like, from God. No. Okay, quickly. These are projects that are happening right now in Havana. This is the Cuban people fighting from the inside. There's 3 different projects. We call it the 4 corners. We have a project that's in Cotoro, which exists of 2 projects. One, which is dehydration and making products for women who work in Havana, healthy living through natural resources. Rosa Tour is the one that is on the farm and within a small city in small province in Cotoro, which is just outside of Havana, which lost a lot of jobs during the pandemic. So they came up with a solution to start to take garbage and make it into paper, developed a tourist item that they could sell. They have patios that all have gardens with medicinal plants, so they're getting contracts for all of their patio dwellers to sell their medicines to people in Havana who are making makeup and different products. So they're working against climate change, working to show the US that they can't defeat the spirit of the people in Cuba. So this is going to be, unfortunately, there is a blackout thanks to the US government right now, so they can't join us live. But we do have 3 films from each 3 of the projects. You will not see Karabuni, but please, in the front, you will see in this journal, their stories are featured. Karabuni, Balinya, and all of you, mostly got them, you can buy them in the front, and Kotoro. So enjoy. This is run by Kenya Serrano and Dayani, you will see, and Isa and Manrisa. Enjoy.
Santa María del Rosario es una ciudad condal, pueblo fundacional del Cotorro, rodeada de vegetación. Es como dicen nuestras amistades, una ciudad dentro de una jungla. Y por tanto todas las producciones derivadas de esa vegetación reciben el impacto del cambio climático. O sea que la cultura agrícola del territorio ha debido adaptarse a esas condiciones del cambio climático. Producciones que normalmente se obtenían en meses específicos del año han debido desplazarse en tiempo por los cambios en los regímenes de lluvia, en la sequía. Nosotros utilizamos en Rosatur el espacio de la finca ecológica La Palma, que tiene dentro de sus alternativas para el riego unas pocetas para poder aprovechar el agua de lluvia en tiempo de sequía. Además, en el taller de papel artesanal también utilizamos el agua de lluvia para evitar el consumo del agua potable. El régimen de lluvia en Cuba está cada vez más corto. Y entonces, para producir los productos agrícolas durante todo el año, se necesita riego constante. Por tanto, una de las alternativas que encuentran los campesinos y dueños de patio en sentido general es poder aprovechar el agua de lluvia. Por la gravedad, en esta finca La Palma, donde aprovechamos el espacio, se crearon de manera rústica, artesanal, unas pocetas donde se acumula agua durante todo el año y así se puede garantizar el regadío en tiempo de sequía, que repito, cada vez es más largo el periodo de sequía. El cambio climático, por tanto, nos ha compulsado a buscar estas alternativas para poder obtener nuestros productos, el consumo humano, el consumo animal durante todo el año. El año pasado enfrentamos un fenómeno muy raro, peligroso, devastador. Alrededor de esta propia fecha de marzo, una granizada atípica que afectó toda la plantación de mango y aguacate, en las semillas, que es lo básico, y durante todo el año, o sea, la cosecha de mango y aguacate, que son uno de los productos insignias y básicos de Santa María del Rosario, se vio afectado. Solo sobrevivieron algunas frutas menos comunes y más fuertes. Nosotros esperamos este año no tener que enfrentar este fenómeno, pero ahí es donde está el reto, en que son fenómenos espontáneos, que no son predecibles, pero debemos educarnos y prepararnos para eso. ¿Cuáles son las alternativas? Por ejemplo, hacer casas de cultivo que permitan sembrar en cualquier momento del año, no esperar precisamente por el tiempo de sequía o regadío, porque también el año pasado, por ejemplo, esperando en octubre y noviembre que se acabaran las lluvias, ¿no? Supuestamente se acababan las lluvias a principios de octubre y todavía era diciembre y estaba lloviendo. Las semillas se echaron a perder. Las semillas de los vegetales se echaron a perder. Es decir, que en este mes de febrero no tenemos los vegetales que debíamos haber tenido precisamente porque se alargó demasiado el periodo de lluvia. Rosatur nació precisamente para mejorar la calidad de vida de una población que se sentía con un fatalismo geográfico enorme al estar en un lugar apartado con bajas posibilidades de empleo, dificultades de la transportación para viajar al resto de la ciudad y con pocas opciones de servicios, de ofertas de bienes y de recreación. Rosatur viene siendo en Santa María Rosario una fuente de empleo que cada vez está creciendo más. Sirve para que las personas puedan vivir de los recursos endógenos sin tener que trasladarse a otro lugar a trabajar. Rosatur aspira a aprovechar de una manera racional los recursos endógenos de Santa María Rosario para podérselo ofrecer a visitantes tanto nacionales como extranjeros. Cada vez es más difícil el acceso de las personas de otros países a visitar los lugares en la propia Habana y en el resto del país. El bloqueo está impidiendo llegar a esos públicos que hemos hecho en Rosatur para enfrentar estas dificultades. Hemos tratado de aprovechar los recursos nuestros para disminuir el consumo de insumos caros. Por ejemplo, en Rosatur el consumo de combustibles fósiles es mínimo, empezando por ahí. Consumimos poca electricidad, poco petróleo, promovemos el consumo de biocarbón para la cocción y en cuanto a transportación, enfrentamos dificultades para transportar a las personas desde el centro de la ciudad hasta allí, pero los recorridos son a pie. Y las materias primas principales que utilizamos son recicladas. Es nuestra manera de enfrentar el bloqueo, tratando de aprovechar al máximo los materiales que ya tenemos en existencia allí, para no depender de grandes importaciones. En esa comunidad que se ha formado y se ha asentado desde hace 25 años, por personas que temporalmente llegaron allí debido a derrumbes en su vivienda, falta de vivienda, con circunstancias personales y familiares adversas, han sabido aprovechar esa estancia para empezar a mostrar sus potencialidades. Están aprovechando la mayoría sus patios para producir sus propios alimentos en cuanto a especias, vegetales, frutales, sobre todo. La mayoría de las mujeres son artesanas de cierta manera, costureras, y también aprovechan esas habilidades. Aquí la sugerencia está en aprovechar las potencialidades y las capacidades tanto de las personas como del territorio en un fin común y colectivo. ¿Qué se propone Rosatur? A través de la práctica agroecológica, los círculos de interés de reciclaje de papel, de la historia local, del aprovechamiento del patrimonio cultural y natural de Santa María de Rosario, que estos niños crezcan de una manera diferente, que asuman el aprovechamiento de sus recursos endógenos como algo valioso, que el sentido de pertenencia a la localidad sea lo que los haga crecer cada día mejor.
Bienvenidos al proyecto de desarrollo local Beliña. Mi nombre es Isabel Martín González, Soy la líder de este proyecto y los invito a que pasen a conocer la nave de elaboración para que conozcan los procesos que se realizan aquí. Adelante. Aquí tenemos una pequeña exposición de los productos que pueden hacerse en Beliña, que fundamentalmente aquí están la conservación por esterilización y la conservación por deshidratación. En el caso de la esterilización tenemos aquí algunas muestras de jugo y de algunas frutas en conserva que tienen como objetivo fundamental ser absolutamente naturales por el hecho de no tener ningún aditivo químico en su preparación. Y nos demuestra aquí, algunas de estas tienen ya hasta 2 y 3 años, que podemos con una esterilización casera bien hecha poder darle una vida útil larga a las producciones, a los alimentos que nos rodean en la naturaleza. Tenemos también el vinagre que a partir de la cáscara de mango producimos y que le confiere, justamente por ser de la cáscara de mango, le confiere un valor adicional que es la obtención de antioxidante, y después lo envasamos en diferentes formatos y con distintos saborizantes. Aquí los podemos encontrar con romero, con orégano, con jengibre, hasta con ajo y aceituna, o sea, cualquiera de las formas de conservar y de saborizar. En este caso, los pomitos pequeños están todos son vegetales deshidratados, que los hacemos con el objetivo, después de unido, tener una sopa rápida, o sea, algo que puesto en un caldo sencillamente nos produce una sopa en pocos minutos. Y también como deshidratados tenemos algunas muestras aquí de harina, y una vez que se extraen salen por esta puerta como puerta de salida que impide el que haya un intercruciamiento entre una y otra producción.
Thank you all. Thank you all. Okay, we're bringing this workshop to an end. The last workshop just ended. I want to thank you all for taking the time out to learn more about the climate justice work in Cuba. There's also information, as Erin mentioned, in the journal, and we'll also upload the videos on the website so you can take the time to actually engage with them in real time on your own. I know we kind of sped through these things, but as someone who lives on an island, I do want to say these are really real issues that we're combating. So we can learn a lot from Cuba, and in Puerto Rico, it's simultaneously we're dealing with blackouts as well. Where I live, there's constant blackouts. So I want to let you know that Cuba is leading the way, and I am learning firsthand from Cuba in the ways in which we can combat climate change and the shifts that we're seeing in the realm of climate change and environmental justice, so environmental crises. But the next workshop will be in here in this room on traveling and material aid. And it will be starting in approximately 2 to 3 minutes, okay? Thank you all for coming.